This is for the mature and motivated, and that everyone knows that the content is deeper and is for people that are mature for it. So everybody knows, and we've been speaking a lot here, that this month is the month of Elul. And we spoke also that this month, the mazel of the month, the mazel means the spiritual energy, the constellation of the month is the Besula, is the Virgin. I think they call it the Virgo energy. And yes, all the constellations are spoken about in depth in Jewish texts and sources in the most wondrous way, originating all the way back to the Sefer Yetzirah, written by Avram Avinu and received as a tradition from the first human to ever exist, Adam Harishon. So we're talking about going all the way back with real ancient wisdom, where the energies of each month are spoken about. And the energy of this month is the energy of the Besula, the energy of the Virgin. Now, pardon?
We're going by star signs?
By the constellations. And all the constellations come from Torah sources. Now, the energy of that month, i.e. this month, the Besula, one of the ideas of a Besula is that it's like a beginning. There's nothing there yet, and it's potential and pure potential. And the creation of the world, anybody know when the creation of the world was? So it's interesting. What day of the creation was Rosh Hashana? Well, what day is Rosh Hashana? Is the first day of Tishrei. Excellent. We're in the month right now of Elul. So Rosh Hashana is the first day of the next month. But what day is Rosh Hashana really celebrating? Of creation. If you open up your Torah, so Rosh Hashana is the sixth day, because man was created on the sixth day of creation. And I mean man, I mean human. The human being was created on the sixth day of creation. And therefore, what was the first day of creation? What day in the Hebrew calendar is that? And what day is it? So, yes, what day in the calendar is it? So 6 days before day one of Tishrei is Chaf Hey, the 25th day of Elul this month. So one reason to say that this is like the virgin month is that the world was created on the 25th day of Elul. Now you know it's very, very interesting. Has anybody even ever heard of celebrating something on the 25th day of Elul? No. Wouldn't you think it would be a pretty big day to celebrate? I mean, the creation of heaven and earth? Isn't that a pretty big deal, Nikki? What do you say? I would say a pretty big thing. You're going to see, it's basically, except a few Kabbalists, it passes without people even noticing it. You're going to be in yeshiva, like, no one's going to talk. You guys know, like, today's like the creation of literally heaven and earth. And the next day, and the creation of the constellations and the stars and everything. It's just going to pass by like a regular day. You know, Ramadan's going to be serving up the chicken. Ramadan's our head chef. If anybody doesn't know, makes fantastic meats and all sorts of delicacies. And you're just going to go by like, oh yeah, heaven and earth were created today. You know, pass the ketchup. And come Rosh Hashana, and it's the biggest deal. Which is very interesting. Why does the creation of the world go by without any notice? And Rosh Hashana is like the biggest noticeable days of the entire year, and all day in shul, and people wear kittles, and shofars are blasting, and everyone's careful. Yes?
So if you don't have really a timetable, because time wasn't existent back then, and it could have been millions, thousands of years, during that whole period, would 25th of Elul, so we said, be the end of that whole creation period, or the beginning of when it started?
The beginning. The 25th of Elul is the beginning of the creation story.
As it started, but then the next day wouldn't be the creation of creation of everything else.
It is, but days are measured differently then.
Exactly.
Once we have the calendar, all of that is in those days. All that energy, even those millions of years, can be in those calendar days. The energy in those days. Yes. Everyone have the question clear? Why is Rosh Hashana like the biggest day? And by the way, your whole year is dependent on Rosh Hashana. It's like the stuff and the creation of heaven and earth. You will not even notice it. You'll be having Heinz ketchup like nobody's, without even blinking an eye. Yes?
Is it that we celebrate the creation of man?
Oh. The purpose of the creation of the world, and it's so clear, was to get to the human. The creation of all of heaven and earth, all the fish in the sea, all the birds in the sky, all of the mammals, all of plant life, all the bugs, everything. The great mountains, the great oceans, was all to get to the human. So really Rosh Hashana, which we call the creation of the world, it's really the celebration of man. The celebration of the human. And what makes the human different than all other elements of creation?
Free choice.
Free choice. That's going to be a major topic we're going to be working on. This is the crown jewel of creation, and everything is here to serve the human, not to abuse it. The entire world, though, is here for us to use in order to bring God into the world. Yes?
If humans are the only ones that have free will and angels don't, then how come angels were allowed to do things against what God said they would do?
Angels have some degree of very low-level choice. Generally, though, an angel is just programmed to do what it's supposed to do. Humans, though, have absolute free choice. Absolute free choice because we're comprised of both angel and animal. And then there's a part of me inside that's able to identify more with my godly self, more with my angelic self. But I have the choice because I'm put inside this reptilian body. Yeah. And all this happened back in the garden. Okay? So let's just go through this a little bit. I'm going to take you guys back into the garden for a little bit. Everybody ready for a tiyul? We're going to go on a journey back into the garden. Okay, get ready. Hope you packed some water and some carrot sticks as we're going on a trip. Very good. Your hiking boots or your barefoot shoes, whatever your thing is. So, God creates the world. On the sixth day is the creation of man. The Gemara describes how man was created. Man was created male and female, Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, attached together as Siamese twins. Did everybody know that?
Yes.
Adam and Eve were created attached together as Siamese twins.
Back to back.
Do you know how they were created? Back to back. Back to back Siamese twins created. That's what it means, the rib. It means the back. They were created to the back of each other, back to back Siamese twins. They're created as one. Now, what do you see as the positives and the drawbacks of such a situation? That's an interesting thing to think about. Like Adam and Eve.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah, cool.
You can't really, make
Okay, that's actually going to be the main thing, which I talked about needs matureness. Well, you can't procreate when you're back to back.
That's why they're saying.
Okay? So you're going at hyperspeed. But yes, we're going to get there. Back to back. Now, what's the upside of being back to back?
Why did it say rib though specifically?
Rib really means the side. Means like the side part. We'll see that because the relationship of the male and the female is a very special and unique relationship, which is going to take us time to describe. There's an element, though, that the male energy has a certain element, and the female energy has a certain element, and the female energy is going to be like a side rib, which we're going to have to talk about. And by the way, a rib comes from a language of a bone, which means the essence, which means something very, very deep, a very, very deep guidance for the man, which we're going to get to all of this. Once a person appreciates the role of the woman in the relationship of man and woman, and they realize that the woman is like a crown over the husband's head, they realize that the female power in that relationship is so great, is so tremendous, but maybe not in the way that people have thought what the woman needs to be in order to feel great, but something much more subtle, which we're going to have to get to. So what do we see as the upside so far in this relationship? You never lose your wife. You're always attached.
You just got each other's back.
You got each other's back.
Separate question. What is this book? Were they separated before or after Adam was with
So we don't like to say it, but
that's why I didn't finish the name.
we don't like to say it, but they were put together and then they were separated. They were separated afterwards, which we'll get to. We'll get to that. Them being together is in a certain way beneficial because you know who your wife is. You don't have to go look for her. You're literally bonded. You always have company. There's a certain beauty in that.
You can't really see her. It's like
That you
don't
know
have
that she's
mirrors.
there. Now, it doesn't have to, obviously we're talking about very deep things here. That it's much more than just, back to back. We know that Adam and Eve in the garden, they were so purified before they ate from the tree that their bodies were mostly made out of light. You could barely make out their body. Their souls, their body was made out of something that has like the luminescence of a nail. Meaning, the way that your nail, compared to the rest of your skin, your nails are like luminescent. Like they have a shine to them. Your skin is a little bit more serpentile. It's like leathery, right? The way that the nail is like so much more, like way more than the body, is really what their bodies were compared to us, and more. Their bodies were like this see-through, beautiful. The nail's also an interesting substance because it's see-through.
But it's also like an armor.
Yeah, it's armor and it's see-through. It covers, but at the same time it's see-through. Meaning your nails, their bodies covered them, but you could see their soul shining right through them. That's awesome. After they ate from the tree, though, their bodies became covered over in this leather-like substance. So this leather-like substance is our primary identification now, because the snake put its energy into us and now has convinced us that we're him. Okay? And the soul inside of us is our real identity. Okay, so back to us. So what would be the upside if they weren't together? Well, let's put it this way. What happened on Rosh Hashana?
They were created.
They were created, and God did something, and this term is going to be an important term that I want you guys to have on the tips of your tongue. This is the term that whenever you learn the deeper element of what Rosh Hashana is all about, it always centers around this. That Rosh Hashana has many, many names. The name that when you go and you want to hang out with like the big mystic, the mystical, the true mystical people of this world, a lot of their discussion is around this part of Rosh Hashana, which is that Rosh Hashana is called the Yom HaNesira, the day of sawing apart, the day of the splitting, the day of the breaking apart of what? Of Adam and Eve. The day that they had a surgical separation, sawing them, that now they were two separate beings.
Is that also meant to be like when Hashem created the world, like He made Adam and Shabbos down there? So
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Is that before the creation of the world, so to speak, we were one inside of Hashem. And isn't that interesting? On Rosh Hashana is the day where we're, so to speak, now splitting apart, and now there's a creation. Now, what's a downside to getting split apart?
Always find your way.
Yeah, meaning Eve could just say, Adam, I'm out of here. I'm going over there.
She does go over there.
I'm going over there with, Mr. Elephant Man. He's like more my type of a guy. And Adam, the relationship could be lost. But what's more, it's risky, right? It's risky to split them. You don't have that risk when you're one. In this world, when we're created, wouldn't it have been better for us to just stay up there in heaven, one with God? Now we're down here. It's risky, right? What could a person say? I'm going over there, God, Mr. Elephant Man, or whatever your thing is. Nowadays, when I say Mr. Elephant Man, people could actually say, yeah, I'm into elephants. Like anything goes. That's how crazy we've become, and how much we need Rosh Hashana. Is that people could say, God, I'm going other places, even though it's quite a farce because you can't leave God. There's nothing but God. But the perception that you could happens. Why? Because on Rosh Hashana, God cuts us, so to speak, off as separate beings. But what's the upside?
You can get closer.
And through what?
Through separation.
Because?
Because now that you have the ability to go separate ways, if you choose to stay together, you're closer.
What's the most important word? What's your name again? What's the most important word that Zev said in that statement? Choose. That now, Adam and Chava weren't choosing each other. They're just like, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. There needs to be a separation in order to choose it. To choose it. This is a lot of times people's relationships also with, could be Judaism, where they were forced to go to synagogue, Sunday school, whatever, what have you. And it like bugged them out. Like, I need to separate from this, and I need to come to this myself. I need to find this myself. I'm leaving in order to find this myself. And when you choose the relationship, in the language of Kabbalah we call this, you go from being back to back, which is called acher ba'acher. You're, so to speak, forced. Back to back means something is forced. You're doing it, but it's forced. You have to do it. One of the examples of when something is forced and why we use the back as like a forced type of a concept is, imagine the following scene. You have somebody who is God forbid, a horrible terrorist. And they want to bring him to trial. He was caught and they want to bring him to trial in order to met out the maximum punishment for the horrible deeds that he's done. And to let a true justice system prosecute him to the maximum extent. Now, what do you need to do in order to get to trial? You put him in some cell somewhere. You need to keep him alive in order to get to trial, that the full measure of justice can be meted out. Now, in order to keep him alive, you have to give him some food, right? How do you think you're going to give him some food? Do you think you're going to order some fancy Wagyu steak and come with a smile on your face and here you go, Mr. Horrible Terrorist? The way that it's described is that you're going to throw it like a bone over your shoulder, like take this scum. I'm giving you, but I resent it. Meaning there's a givingness, there is a relationship here, but it's so much from behind. It's like I resent it, which is interesting also. Even in people's body language, when you don't like something, what do? You turn your back to them. It's so interesting watching people like in a learning environment. The guy's like, yeah, I'm listening, Rabbi. I'm listening to you. As soon as the back is there, whereas a person who faces face to face, there's a warmness, there's an openness. I'm right here. By the way, there's another way to actually turn your back on somebody when you're not, even when you're facing them. It's this one. It's a famous one nowadays. Look, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. That's just another code word for I've turned away. My back is to you. I've turned away. I'm disinterested. Now, the beauty of splitting two people, and by the way, in heaven, you and your wife were one. The two parts of the same being, of the same soul. What happened? Now, why don't you just stay up there? It's great. But God says, no, I'm going to bring you down. I'm going to split you apart. I'm going to put you into this world. And it's risky, right? Because this woman says, I'm out of here. I'm going to, I don't know, Cancun, hanging out, doing my thing. And he says, I'm going to go start my media company, do my,
If we have 7 possible shifts, how does that work out?
It's very complex. Very, very complex. There's really one. It's called your Ziva Grecian.
What does that mean?
There's one main woman to marry, and as long as you go through all the right steps, B'ezrat Hashem, you'll marry that one. Then we talk about a second marriage. It's very complex, much beyond the scope of the last 1.5 minutes. Very complex. But yes, those souls come down and they're split. Now,
Those 7
it's
when you have one.
it's risky.
Do they have them as well?
It's very complex, and the neshamas can split and go into different people. So it's quite detailed. We'll have to make like a week-long series on talking about how neshamas split and go to different people and then how they come back together, and Ziva Grecian, Sheni, and Tisha B'Av. It's a whole thing, a lot of details to it. For us, though, the risk is that these two people could run away. But what's the benefit? They can choose each other now. Now you have two people and they say, I want you. As opposed to being forced into the relationship, now they're down here and they're able to choose each other. Okay, so back to us. On Rosh Hashana, Adam and Chava are sliced apart. They're split. Elul is the time before Rosh Hashana. We call it the Virgin. That's the time where there's no ability to do anything yet. When two people are faced back to back, you can't have any children. You can't have any children because there's no way to procreate. You need to split the two in half. It's risky though. Somebody could run away. And we hope that on that very day, the will of those two people will be to come back and unify. The same thing happens with us and God on Rosh Hashana. It's the day that, so to speak, the human consciousness is created, and we're split apart. And now, on the one day that you're split apart, party! I can go anywhere. Where do you guys want to go? Greece, Tel Aviv, let's go! Some island somewhere. That would be the worst thing to do. As long as there's services happening in those places, that's a different story. There's many services, holy service in Tel Aviv, and I think there is in Greece as well. I meant like the beach, MDMA nightclub scene on Rosh Hashana. That's the bad decision. So that idea is that, you're split apart. It's the day that the most important thing we want to do is choose the relationship with God. Because you know what choosing the relationship will ultimately mean? Fruits will come out of it. When Adam and Chava choose each other, there'll be children. Children and fruits are all one thing. When we choose that relationship with God, there's going to be children. We're going to face God face to face and bear fruits, if you will. Much more to be discussed about that, because how do you bear fruits? How does that exactly work? We're going to talk about this. My dear friends, have a wonderful day, a wonderful Shabbos. We should be Zad Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'mehera V'yameinu. Amen. Call to Shabbos.